Considering how thick and huge the arm was, it seemed impossible, but it was neither a dream nor an illusion. "Okay, I'll take this guy. You're hurt pretty badly, and if I heal?" The troll took a step back as if it couldn't comprehend what it was seeing. Well, it was only natural, since a mysterious person had appeared out of nowhere and blocked its full-powered blow. Maybe it thought she was some sort of magic being. With a dazed expression, Enri turned his back to the troll and began walking. He was utterly unguarded, but the troll didn't attack. No, it couldn't, because that would entail ignoring the one standing in its way. "NFI." Enri squeezed him. "It's you." His hazy response, spoken as if from a dream, alerted her to how critical his condition was. They had managed to snatch him from the jaws of death, but his psychological shock was surely critical. "I'm glad you're okay." "You too." Enri felt something warm returning to her heart, replacing the cold she'd felt when she thought Enri would die. "I'm really glad you're okay." She hugged him hard. "You too." His hands went around her, hugging her back. It was a tight embrace, but comfortable. Her tears overflowed and ran down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" "Idiot. Sorry to bug you while you're flirtin', but..." They both let go simultaneously. Though a little sad about that, she turned to Lupus Regina. "Lupus Regina." The troll, shifting her gaze, she saw something that defied description. "Oh yeah. He's that raw hamburger-looking thing over there. Just gotta grill him up, and he's done." In the direction her bloody holy staff was pointing, there was a gory lump of meat on the ground. There was nothing to show that it had once been a troll. The sight of it trying to regenerate was beyond horrifying and made Enri feel sick. "I'm glad you're both alright. Seems like the other guys did okay, too." Enri heard the voices of the other goblins coming their way. It sounded like the fight by the front gate had ended in victory. A red column like fire raining out of the sky enveloped the troll, and the stink of burning flesh filled the air. "That's it for the troll. Anyhow, my work here is done, so I'm gonna head back. NFI, Lord Ainz highly praises your work on the purple potion and would like to invite you to his house, so you better prepare yourself. I mean, look forward to it." As if she'd said everything she wanted to say, she turned on her heel and headed for the back gate. "Thank you." The eccentric maid neither turned around nor stopped at Enri's shout, but just waved a hand. "Boss lady, boss man. We'll lead everyone over here. Please rest." The goblins ran off without listening for a reply. Enri thought they could have left at least one behind, but she was more worried about Enri, so she lent him a shoulder as they walked. Their sighs overlapped coincidentally. Then they both looked up at the stars at almost exactly the same time. "She saved us." "Yeah. We were lucky." "Yeah. I never want to do anything like this ever again." "Yeah." Silence fell between them. Then Enri suddenly remembered something. "I don't know if I love you or not, but I don't want you to go away anywhere." "Yeah. Does that mean I love you?" "I dunno. But if it does, I'm glad." Enri and Enri waited for the goblins shoulder to shoulder while quietly gazing up at the night sky. Epilogue. "Boss lady, looks like you're ready." That was Jijimu's remark to Enri when he came into her house and saw her. "Yeah, but, you don't think I look weird?" Enri asked, staring at the figure she cut in her best clothes, the ones she wore only for the harvest festival and other celebrations. "Nothing weird about ya at all, right, boss man?" "Yeah, you look pretty, Enri." Enri blushed and saw Jugemu and Nemu grinning out of the corner of her eye. Their smiles were more wicked than warm. She was of a mind to say a word or two to them about those expressions, which had been appearing more frequently as her relationship with Enri progressed. At the same time, she wisely knew that her face would only become redder if she tried, so she kept her mouth shut. Still, leaving them like that was dangerous. Especially Nemu. Sometimes her sister asked her questions she had a hard time answering. I feel like she's developed an awful lot mentally over the past few days. I should let Enri rescue me here. Catching her pleading glance for assistance, her boyfriend chimed in. By the way, how's it going with the magic sword? Last time I asked it sounded like you were having trouble because it was different from other swords you had used. The greatsword YGGDRASIL carried was a magical blade he had acquired in the attack a few days ago. I finally got used to the weight and center of gravity, so I can use it as well as my other swords now. As you might expect of a magic weapon, it's sharper and whatnot. However, it's a bit lame that the poison running down the groove only lowers your opponent's strength. Really? It sounds like an amazing effect. It's not very strong poison. At our level, we can mostly resist it. If it only affects weaker enemies, it's not very. YGGDRASIL looked a bit gloomy all of a sudden. What's wrong? Well, YGGDRASIL looked up at the ceiling and then reluctantly spoke. The troll that had this sword. It just seemed strange. When I saw the corpse, it did seem different from a normal troll, like maybe a subspecies. No, I don't mean like that, boss man. The way it moved, the dysfunctional regeneration ability, the feel of cutting into it. It was strange. Yeah, I got this eerie feeling it was already dead but still moving around. A moving corpse? You're saying it was a zombie? I don't know. That sort of troll could exist. Hey, sorry I'm late. The door burst open. Lupus Regina walked right into Enri's house, son at her back. As if to speak for everyone who had been caught off guard, a light smack sounded from her head. You dolt. Is that any way to behave? Please excuse us, everyone. Yanking Lupus Regina, who was pressing a hand to her head, behind her, the woman who had been in the rear stepped in front of the door and bowed. I am Lord Ainz maid, Yuri Alpha. I've come to collect Master Enri, Miss Enri, and Miss Nemu. May I come in? Oh yes, please do. You too, Lupus Regina. The woman thanking them as she entered with Lupus Regina was another heavenly beauty. Now then, if you're ready, I'll make the preparations to teleport us. Teleport? You can teleport? Enri shouted. Enri had no idea why he was shouting, but she figured teleporting must be a big deal. I guess it was amazing that time the captain of the Royal Select and his men teleported, too. Oh no. It's not my own power but that of a magic item Lord Ainz lent to me. The horn and the potions. It's all so amazing. It's just so incredible that I can't really take it all in. Enri's shoulders slumped. Enri realized she had the chance to ask something she'd wanted to know for a while and said, Is it really okay for me to go? And my sister? Today Enri was invited to the house of the village's savior, Ainz Ooal Gown, but she'd been anxious ever since she heard it was probably fine for her to go along. Sir Gown was an immensely powerful caster, essentially from a different world than the one she lived in. Her stomach threatened to cramp whenever she wondered if she would accidentally do something rude. It's totally cool. This is to celebrate the potion NFI made, so Lord Ainz said it's fine for you to come along, since you're his girl. You don't gotta fret over manners or etiquette. Lupu, please do something about that mouth of yours. Yuri, it's fine, isn't it? They're my friends, right, En? Yeah. Yes. You're right. The maid named Yuri sighed and walked over to the wall. Suddenly a big wooden frame appeared as if she had pulled it out of thin air. It was like an ornately carved picture frame large enough for people to pass through. Is that pocket space? No, I don't think you can put such big items in that, so it must be some more advanced magic. Okay, please enter. Lupu, can I leave guarding this place up to you? Yep. On the other side of the frame should have been the familiar wall, but instead it opened onto an unknown world. Yuri led the way through to the other side. Enri went next. Enri followed a moment later, and then Nemu, who was holding her hand. There was no resistance as they crossed over, and they found themselves in a magnificent hallway lined on both sides with statues that seemed liable to start moving at any moment. Wow! Sighing in admiration, Nemiu's mouth gaped, and she craned her neck back to look up at the ceiling. Supporting her so she wouldn't fall, Enri looked up, too. Fantastic! The hallway's marble floor was polished to perfection and covered with a gorgeous rug. A bit astounded, Enri thought this must be what it was like inside the royal palace. This way. Yuri's voice brought her to her senses, and she ran to catch up with the other two, but running seemed so out of place that she slowed to a trot. After they walked a short distance, they came upon another frame in the wall. It was like the one from before except for two things. First, it was many times larger than the other one, several people could walk abreast and pass through without a problem. Second, they couldn't see through to the other side, there was something covering the frame, like a thin film, radiating the colors of a rainbow. Please proceed through this one just like the last one. Enri and Firia exchanged glances. Okay, want to go together? They held hands. Lined up, Nemiu, Enri, and Firia, from left to right, they stepped into the frame. For just an instant, Enri thought she saw a woman wearing red on the bottom and white on top standing among falling pink blossoms. Welcome. A chorus of perfectly synchronized voices greeted them. This was a hallway even more gorgeous than the last. Beautiful maids had lined up along either side. In the very back stood a figure wearing a strange mask and a robe such a deep raven black that it seemed to suck in the light. It was the caster who had saved their village, Ainz Ooal Gown. Enri stood there blankly with her mouth hanging open. A glittering chandelier hung from the ceiling, and there was not so much as a speck of dust on the white floor. The lovely women lining the splendid hall seemed to have come from a fantasy world. As she was standing, dazed, in this dream world, Enri felt Nemiu suddenly let go of her hand. It registered hazily in a corner of her mind, but in the next instant she was jerked back to reality. Nemiu had taken off running. Awesome, she shouted, racing around at top speed. She sprinted past the maids and over to where Ainz was. The sight must have been too much for her to handle, so she couldn't contain herself as she went on a giddy rampage. Woo! Amazing! Nemiu! Get back here! Enri ran after her a moment later. Her sister's incredibly rude behavior turned her entire body into a fountain of sweat. But this place, lined with beautiful maids, was like a holy sanctuary. Enri didn't feel as though a village girl like herself should be racing around. Her legs expressed her contradictory thoughts directly and ended up moving with a gait like a dying frog. While Enri was herking and jerking, Nemiu had no trouble reaching the village's savior. Is it really that amazing? Yeah. It's way too amazing. I see. So it's amazing, well, yes, I suppose it is. Ainz slowly reached his hand out and gently caressed Nemiu's head. This is where I live. It's great, isn't it? Yeah, really great. Did you build it, Sir Gown? Yes, that's right. I built it with my friends. Your friends are great, too. Cheerful laughter echoed throughout the corridor. Then Enri and Firia finally, nervously reached them. Enri grabbed Nemiu's hand with a squeeze and the nuance that she wouldn't let her go again. We are humbled and honored by your invitation. Thank you very much, you don't need to be so formal. We're here to celebrate the creation of your new potion. I do hope you can relax. My humble apologies, Sir Gown, for my little sister Nemiu's rudeness. It's really nothing to worry about. She was moved by the sight of my home, right? In that case, it's my fault, isn't it? Ainz replied in good humor. Let's see. The plan was to hear from Firia, but... Nemiu. What do you think? Would you like to take a tour of the house that I, know, my friends, and I, built? Yeah. I wanna see. Please show me your awesome mansion. Okay. I'll show you all sorts of things. Ainz seemed to be in such a good mood that Enri couldn't say a word. Ainz told Enri he wanted her to wait in the sitting room while he showed Nemu around, so she sat lightly on the sofa. Like a little animal that had been kidnapped from its nest, she glanced around nervously at her surroundings. Sitting next to her, though there was plenty of room, they sat huddled together, was Enri, who was so on edge that he also seemed like a frightened animal. Enri had already known that the savior of the village, the great caster Ainz Ooal Gown, was an amazing person, but her imagination hadn't gone far enough. She felt like she'd wandered into a storybook world where a princess would appear. Everything was so glittering and dreamlike. Above the fireplace on the left and right hung glass birds that seemed liable to fly away at any second. If I broke one of these, I'd probably never be able to pay him back even if I worked my whole life. The sofa she was sitting on was pristine, and she worried the dirt from her clothes would get on it. The light shining down from the first chandelier Enri had ever seen in her life was neither torchlight nor candlelight but magic. She seemed to remember there being a chandelier at the Adventurers Guild in Irantal, but it hadn't been lit, and it wasn't as grand as this one. All the furnishings were tasteful and of excellent quality, especially the impressively solid ebony lacquered table sitting in front of her. Even if she didn't know the prices of these sorts of things, she could tell they were extraordinarily expensive. The painting on the wall was so detailed it was as if the artist had taken a beautiful live woman and covered her in paint. She wondered if it was really all right for them to walk in their shoes on the carpet. It was so soft, she wondered if she should lift up her feet as she sat on the couch and try to minimize their contact. Enri was so nervous she thought she might collapse. Maybe we should have gone with them. Ainz had opposed it, but now Enri's stomach was doing somersaults worrying about Nemu being on her own. I hope she's not causing trouble for him, I'm sure she's fine. Sir Ainz is a very understanding man. I don't think he'll be bothered just because a little kid does something rude. But you know, I heard making a noble angry can get you killed. I've heard those stories, but I've never seen it happen. Irantal is directly under the king's jurisdiction, so no nobles have flown off the handle there that I can remember. Is Sir Gown a noble? You don't think so? I'm pretty sure only a noble would be powerful enough to have such splendid rooms and collect such pretty maids. I wonder. I don't think even nobles can get maids that pretty. Enri's eyebrows stealthily tilted to a dangerous angle. Although she'd called the maids pretty, too, it was uncomfortable to hear it from Enri. Just as she rolled her eyes to glare at him, they heard a knock. She jumped, and since Enri was so close they were touching, it spread to him, and his whole body shuddered. The knock sounded again. As Enri thought frantically about what she was being asked to do, Enri spoke. Please come in. Excuse my intrusion. As Enri was falling in love with Enri all over again for the cool-headedness that had led him to the correct answer, a maid came in pushing a silver service cart. It was a pretty woman wearing an immaculate maid uniform that even an amateur could tell was well tailored. On her face was a gentle smile, but Enri's mind was seized by the worry that the moment she looked at them, she would suddenly scowl furiously and say, "What have you done?" "I brought you something to drink." "That's okay." The maid was momentarily caught off guard by Enri's hasty reply. She shifted her eyes to Enri and then looked back at Enri. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Enri's stiff nervousness and Enri's timidity must have conveyed their feelings to her. With a genuinely kind smile, she sat next to Enri, who was paralyzed with nerves. She put a friendly hand on her shoulder. "Lady Emmett, please don't be so nervous. You and Master Balar are our guests. All you need to do is relax while you wait. But, I just think what would happen if I accidentally broke something, not to worry. You could break any of the things here, and Lord Ainz wouldn't be upset." "What? Any of these things?" Enri got a headache just thinking of the prices of the things in this room. Is she saying these things aren't important to him at all? Yes. Lord Ainz is exceedingly wealthy. That I know. Because he'd given her that amazing magic horn like it was nothing. So you can relax. As long as you don't destroy something on purpose, I'm sure he would smile and forgive you. And I think he would be able to repair the item with magic. Still, I understand. Then how about a drink? Perhaps it will put you more at ease. But, she ran her eyes over the cups on the silver cart. They were white porcelain and exquisite. The lips were gold. The sides had something painted on them, she couldn't tell if it was a picture or a pattern, in a deep brilliant blue. They were so dainty Enri thought just her holding one would be enough to break it. Enri, let's have something. It would be rude to refuse, then, yes, please. Understood. Preferences diverge when it comes to the fragrance and flavor of herbal tea, so would normal black tea be alright? Whatever you recommend. The smiling maid prepared their tea with fluid motions. After performing the incomprehensible act of throwing away boiled water she had poured, she eventually presented the pair with tea. Then she set down 2 little jars. Everyone has their own taste, so I provided milk and sugar separately. Please help yourself. When Enri opened the sugar jar, cubes of snow-white powder peeked out. The village girl mechanically dropped several of them into her tea and then stirred until they melted. Afterward, she poured in plenty of milk. Then she took a sip. Her face was pure bliss. It's so sweet. Yeah, I imagine so, if you put that much sugar in. Well, we don't get many sweets in the village. We don't keep bees, after all. I guess syrups are about it. If I learned the magic to create spices, things would be different, but Enri forgot where they were and shouted to Enfiria without meaning to. Do your best to learn it, okay, she heard him reply as she drank another cup of tea. The flavor brought a smile to her face. It really is so sweet and good. That was when they heard several knocks at the door. The maid promptly went into action and opened it with an airy motion. Lord Ainz and your sister have returned. The door opened and Nimue came bounding into the room with a huge grin on her face. Ainz followed behind her. Enri, it was so amazing. Everything so shiny and pretty and awesome. Nimue jumped into Enri's arms. Taking care not to let her sister's feet get the sofa dirty, Enri stood and bowed to Ainz. Sir Gown. I hope my sister didn't do anything rude? No. Actually, I'm sorry for taking her for so long. No, it's fine. Thank you. Don't worry about it. He waved her worries away. Why don't you guys have something to eat before I discuss future plans with Enfiria? But we weren't intending to take advantage of your hospitality, Enfiria blurted out, but Ainz calmed him down. I want to butter you up so I get a better deal. Deal? Shall I give a brief explanation before you eat? Ainz sat on the sofa opposite them. First of all, I don't intend to tell any outsiders about the potion you made. My understanding is that you can't make a purple healing potion without the materials I gave you, is that correct? Yes. I was only able to do it once you gave me those materials. I don't know what power is at work. There are still a lot of unknowns. I think there would only be trouble if word got out about it. If someone asked where you got the materials, that wouldn't be a problem, but there could be some people who would come and try to take them by force. I heard from Lupus Regina that your village was recently attacked by monsters. It's possible that they were driven out of their homes and were looking for a safe place with sturdy walls to stay, but... Did you capture any to interrogate them about why they attacked? We couldn't, Enri replied silently. With the howls of a monster at their backs, the troll that Enri and Enfiria had encountered, the goblins didn't have the leeway to capture any enemies. When they devoted all their energy to ending the battle, the result was no survivors on the enemy side. And it seemed like the one with the magic sword was pretty strong. I see. That's too bad. I'm thinking that's the reason your village was attacked. Your defenses had improved, but that ended up causing trouble. It's only logical that valuables get targeted, right? If word about the potion got out, the same thing might happen. We should keep it a secret, I guess. Thanks for understanding, Enri. If you succeed in creating a red potion like the ones I have, using just ingredients you can find around the village, the reasons to keep it secret might dramatically decrease, but… Anyhow, those are the sorts of things I'd like to discuss after you eat, keeping information confidential, defense, and so on. Okay, the food should be ready. Shall we go? No, we're fine. This place is so fantastic. Enri shook her head back and forth. Well, I won't force you, but the main course is dragon steak. Dragon? Dragons. Enri had heard all sorts of stories where they'd appeared as villains or allies of justice. But in all the stories they possessed immense power. Can you really cook it? That can't be true. He's just teasing us. That's what she would have thought if it wasn't Ainz saying it. But when it was the great caster standing before them talking, the possibility that it was the truth seemed more likely. There are sweets, too. Have you ever had ice cream? They have it in Irantal, but it looks like you've never had it before. It's cold and sweet. It melts in your mouth. It's like sweet ice or snow. Enri and Nimue both gulped in spite of themselves. It's a high-class luxury item. 3 meals worth of money, poof. Seems like you've had it before, Enri. So I'll make sure to give you ice cream that is tastier by far. That and what else is on the menu? The maid acknowledged his question and reeled off the courses. We're planning on a first hors d'oeuvre of piercing lobster and Noten seafood in a velvety sauce. For the second hors d'oeuvre, we've prepared a pan-fried of Fnir foie gras. The soup is cream of Alfheim, sweet potato, and chestnut. We've chosen to serve meat for the main dish. As Lord Ainz mentioned a moment ago, it's nicely marbled Jotunheim frost dragon steak. Then, for dessert, intelligent apple compote over yogurt. And ice cream, so a side of golden tea ice cream. For an after-dinner beverage, we thought coffee might not be to your taste, so we've prepared fresh peach water. That's all. If you require any changes, we'll make them right away. She's casting a spell. Enri couldn't understand a word she was saying, so she was sure that's what she was doing. Not everyone likes foie gras, right? I doubt kids would. And it seems like a lot of rich dishes. Is there anything a little lighter? In that case, we could offer an hors d'oeuvre salad of scallops with plum star confit. Yeah, doesn't that seem better than the other one? You're asking me? Enri panicked, finding the question directed at her. She didn't even know what they were talking about, so she had no idea how to answer. I think I'll just leave it to you. Squeezing those words out was all she could manage. Ainz went on discussing their meal with the maid. Nimue gazed at him admiringly, and Enri heard her whisper, "Wow." Enri felt the same. Their worlds were just so different from each other's. People who could spend money on luxury items were wealthy. Only a few could spend lavishly on food, which disappeared once it was eaten. Money, knowledge, power, he was a caster who had them all. A mere peasant like Enri wasn't proper company for him. He was probably fit for associating with kings or other lofty breeds. That's how amazing this masked caster seemed. Okay, shall we go? Although I won't be joining you. Eat, just the 3 of you, yes, as a family, without worrying about manners. When you're done, we can talk business. I have to tell Lupus Regina there will be one more person. What did you say, Sir Gown? Nothing, Nimue. When Ainz stood, Nimue followed suit, smiling ear to ear with sparkling eyes. Being called a family made Enri's face hot. She thought something seemed strange about Enri as he sluggishly got to his feet. His lips were shut in a straight line and there was no sign of them opening. But Enri knew how to cut through that knot, stare at him. Through a gap in his bangs, his eyes were clearly darting around before he finally spilled what was on his mind. I just thought, I can't beat him. I mean, there's no way I could. We're just not in the same league as men. But I like you. Does the league you're in really matter that much? As she was thinking she still had a lot to learn, as a woman, Enri blushed. Then he grasped her hand. Shall we go? There was no gloominess in his voice anymore. Enri didn't really understand the change in her boyfriend's emotions, but she was genuinely happy that he had cheered up. They linked hands and followed Ainz and her sister. End of epilogue. End of the first story. If you like my content, join me on Patreon, where you can find more and exclusive novels. Also, you can leave a donation by clicking the Super Thanks button. Thank you very much for your support.